Okay. Oh, no, they don't let it touch the floor. Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Namada Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Mr. Paramahansa Padavridikacharya Ashtottara to Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhakti-yoga Swami Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON Bhagavad Gita Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Prabhupada Padavridikacharya Ashtottara to Sri Srimad, Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti-siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavini ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Hare Krishna. Okay. I guess everyone must be watching online. Huh? Welcome to our online participants.
Hi Krishna, you have one viewer online on Zoom. And then who knows how many on YouTube.
Yes, YouTube, I know. It's viral problem. Hare Krishna. So, just let me get together here. Today is the 12th. Okay. So, okay, that's convenient. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I think we did 28. Yeah, I think. 6. Chapter 6, text 29 at the bottom of page 281. Okay. On this 12th day of September 2022 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace HG Dravida Dasa Prabhupada. Chapter 6, Dhyana-yoga, the yoga of meditation, text 29 at the bottom of page 281. Sarvabhuta stam atmanam sarvabhutani chatmani ikshate yoga yuktatma sarvatra samadarshanaha sarvabhutastam-atmanam 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 sarvabhutani chatmani ikshate yoga yuktatma Atra samadarshanaha sarvabhutas, excuse me, Zoom, anyone to chant?
Sarvabhutastam-atmanam
Sarvabhutastam-atmanam
sarvabhutani chatmani
sarvabhutani chatmani
ikshate yoga yuktatma
ikshate yoga yuktatma
sarvatra samadarshanaha
sarvatra samadarshanaha. Okay. So I'll read the synonyms myself, you just read along silently. Sarvabhutastam, situated in all beings, Atmanam, the Supersoul. Sarva, all, Bhutani, entities, Cha, also, Atmani, in the Self. Ikshate, does see. Yoga Yukta Atma, one who is dovetailed in Krishna consciousness. Sarvatra, everywhere, Samadarshanaha, seeing equally. A true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized person sees me, the Supreme Lord, everywhere, the same Supreme Lord everywhere. Purport. A Krishna-conscious yogi is the perfect seer because he sees Krishna, the Supreme, situated in everyone's heart as Supersoul, Paramatma. Ishwarak sarvabhutanam riddesharjana tishtati. The Lord in His Paramatma feature is situated within both the heart of the dog and that of a Brahmin. The perfect yogi knows that the Lord is eternally transcendental and is not materially affected by his presence in either a dog or a Brahman. That is the supreme neutrality of the Lord. The individual soul is also situated in the individual heart, but he is not present in all hearts. That is the distinction between the individual soul and the Supersoul. One who is not factually in the practice of yoga cannot see so clearly. A Krishna-conscious person can see Krishna in the heart of both the believer and the non-believer. In the Smriti, the Sattvata Tantra 349, this is confirmed as follows. Atatatvad chamatratvad atmahi padamo harihi. The Lord, being the source of all beings, is like the mother and the maintainer. As the mother is neutral to all different kinds of children, the Supreme Father or Mother is also. Consequently, the Supersoul is always in every living being. Outwardly also, every living being is situated in the energy of the Lord. As will be explained in the 7th chapter, the Lord has primarily two energies, the spiritual or superior and the material or inferior. The living entity, although part of the superior energy, is conditioned by the inferior energy. The living entity is always in the Lord's energy. Every living entity is situated in him in one way or another. The yogi sees equally because he sees that all living entities, although in different situations according to the results of fruitive work, in all circumstances remain the servants of God. While in the material energy, the living entity serves the material senses, and while in the spiritual energy, he serves the Supreme Lord directly. In either case, the living entity is the servant of God. This vision of equality is perfect in a person in Krishna consciousness. Om Jnana Timurandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara. So this is the part of the result of practicing Ashtanga Yoga. Krishna has described in some detail the process of Ashtanga Yoga and the result, which was explained in text 20 to 23. This perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self or super self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness realized through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining it, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of the greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. So as I pointed out, when you analyze that statement that Krishna just makes there, it kind of embodies the ultimate goal of every living entity, even though they might not understand that. Every living entity, human or non-human, superhuman or subhuman, is trying to maximize his happiness and minimize his distress. If one is in the bodily concept of life, then that's a futile effort. It's not possible to be happy all the time. It's not possible to ward off the distresses. Oh, that's the constant effort. That's the way the material world works. By the force of time, eventually we encounter very difficult circumstances, and eventually we also receive the happiness that we're due to our past karma. This is explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam when Narada Muni comes in the 5th chapter, and Vyasadevi's written all the other Puranas and the Vedas and the Itihasa, the Mahabharata and everything, but he's still not satisfied. And he's wondering why. And so Narada Muni comes, and basically he says, because you've hardly glorified the Supreme Lord in the process of devotion. Do you think, he says, my dear Prabhu, that the body and the mind are adequate objects of realization, of striving for perfection? And so then he explains that Tasyaiva heto prayateta kovido. Nalabhyate yad brahmadama paryada. That if one is kovida, intelligent, he should strive for what is not available, going up all the way to Brahmaloka and down to Patalaloka. You cannot find it in the material sphere. Tasyaiva heto prayateta kovido nalabhyate brahmana talabhyate dukkha padanyata sukham karlaina sarvata gabhirarangasa. That it's already programmed in from our previous activities in this life and previous life. How much happiness we're going to experience and how much distress we're going to experience. That doesn't say whether you're going to make $1 million or not. You can make $1 million and be as miserable as anything. And you can be a poor subsistence farmer and be happy, very happy. It's the amount of happiness and distress. So the conclusion of that, because he starts the verse, is one should strive for that which you cannot obtain within this material world. In other words, the transcendental happiness that comes from yoga, from contacting our real self and rising up to the spiritual platform. And so that result is explained in these three verses that I read. Boundless transcendental happiness, realized through the transcendental senses. One thinks there's no greater gain, never departs from the truth, never shaken in the midst of greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material. So the miseries you're free from, and you're experiencing boundless happiness. So then he proceeds to describe more of the practice. In other words, it's not easy to get to that point. One has to practice with determination, with faith, not be deviated from the path. But then later on, Arjuna, he said, well, I think I'm going to be deviated from the path. I don't think I can follow this because the mind is too powerful and restless, you know. So Krishna says, even if you fail in this lifetime, if you make a good faith effort, then you'll pick up in next life. You'll be born Shuchinam Shrimatam Gehe Yoga Brashta Vijayate. You'll be born in a wealthy family, but pious, so you won't have to worry about your maintenance. You'll be able to, or even better, in a yogi family, bhakti-yogi family like that. So there's no loss or diminution. And then he's describing more of the process. One has to gradually bring the mind back from wherever it wanders, and like that, under the control of the self. And this self is capital Self. This is the Supersoul. The main goal of the Ashtanga yogis is to realize the Supersoul in the heart. The problem with that is that you're not really experiencing the full joy of the different rasas that you can experience in relation to Krishna, Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But you can become very blissful with kind of Shanta ras. But one of the dangers is the distractions that come from developing these powers, the siddhis, along with this realization. And so it's not a completely secure platform. And Krishna will eventually, at the end of this chapter, say, well, the best yogi is the one who's always worshiping me with love and faith, you know, the bhakti yogi. But here he's giving some of the qualities. The yogi whose mind is fixed on me verily attains highest perfection of transcendental happiness, beyond the modes of passion. So he's bringing it to the point of bhakti here. Thus the self-controlled yogi, constantly engaged in yoga practice, text 28, becomes free from all material contamination, achieves the highest stage of perfect happiness in transcendental loving service of the Lord. Sukhena atyantam sukham ashnute. And then today's verse, a true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized person sees me, the same Supreme Lord, everywhere. So this comes up again in the 9th chapter, where Krishna says, Mayati tamidam sarvam jagadabhyakta murtina matstani sababhutna chamdeshavastadaha. That I am everywhere in my invisible form, abhyakta form, non-manifest form. And by that he means he's everywhere because he's extended everywhere through his energies. So in that sense, we're all within Krishna because we're within this material energy. But if we understand that, then our role is, and our endeavor in bhakti yoga is to remember that and see through the eyes of Shastra and use whatever we can in the service of Krishna, because it's all his. The whole problem comes with forgetfulness. We forget what our real nature is, we forget who the real master is, and we tend to try to become the lord and master of our little circle of our circle of influence. So that, oh, I have a certain amount of money, this is mine, this is, you know, so, and in this way we're in illusion, because everything belongs to Krishna. Ishabhashamidam sarvam, yatkinchit jagatyam jagat. So the solution to that, or the cure for that, is hearing the transcendental message as it is from Bhagavad Gita, first of all, and then we have other books, of course, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. And taking up the practice by which we can clear off the illusion that we've been in since time immemorial. I like to quote this verse as how did we get here? And so in the 11th canto, it's described how the living entity, bhayam dvitiya binaveshitaksya. The verse begins with the word fear, because this is the nature of this world. The transcendental world is Vaikuntha, free from all anxiety. There's no threat of old age, disease, and death, of being thrown out. You just maintaining your devotion to the Lord, whether in Vaikuntha or in the Loka Vrindavan, and your position is secure at the lotus feet of Krishna. But here there's no secure position. There's only the illusion of security. But there's these fallible soldiers. You read the second canto, right at the beginning. Shukadeva Goswami is describing material life in a few verses. He says, at night time, the materialists, those who are in complete illusion, are wasting time just sleeping or trying to enjoy sex life. During the daytime, 5 days a week, say, where is money, trying to enjoy. Diva charteheya, arta means money. And then in weekend, kudumba baranenava, you go shopping, you support the family like that, you know. This is the life. So, and then, of course, but there's always some danger. You know, you might lose your money and so many things, disease. So you have your fallible soldiers. You don't know they're fallible, you take faith in them, which is misplaced. Deha patta kalatradishu atmasaineshu. So he's saying that you, first of all, is your own body, maintain your own health, you know. And then there's your children, and then there's a wife, a husband. Deha patta kalatradishu. So, and with that comes the expansion. You have all other relatives, you have properties that you have to maintain, griha, kshetra, sutta, apta, vitta. And all of this expands. And so this is all what is in your control. And you're in illusion that this will protect you from the dangers of this world, but it won't. Eventually, you get older, they get older, the stock market crashes, whatever. All of these things are iffy. They're not secure. We're on page 282. And so this is what's going on in the world, even human beings. The lower animals, they have no idea. They're just living on instinct and eating and sleeping, mating, defending, and eventually dying. But they don't have any sin. They're just moving up until they come to human beings. We have the greater intelligence, we have a greater responsibility. So, the true yogi observes me in all beings. So we can see, in other words, understanding, yes, every living entity has a Supersoul with him. And is receiving, intelligence, as Krishna says in the 15th chapter. Mattak smriti jnanam apohanangsha sarvasya chaham mriti sannivishno. I'm present in the heart of every living entity. And for me is coming knowledge, forgetfulness, and remembrance. That's true for the ant, and it's true for the human being, and it's true for Brahma. So Krishna is guiding, and so in that way we can see within every living entity there's the guidance of the Supersoul. And every being in me, we're all inside Krishna's energy. So in this way, if we actually see this way, we'll never forget Krishna. The self-person sees me, the same Supreme Lord, everywhere. So this seeing is emphasized because by seeing through the eyes of Shastra, then one has the cue and the insight of how to act properly in every situation. But if you're not seeing through the eyes of Shastra, that means that you're seeing through the clouded eyes of illusion, through different modes of nature. And that's one of the great qualities of the Bhagavad Gita. It can lift the veil from your eyes so that you really see what the truth is. And if you have faith in that and you live by it, then you start to have the benefits of Krishna consciousness, which is more peace of mind, more hope that there in the progress of your life. Because after all, the first lesson is to broaden your perspective. Life is this is a very, I like to describe it, this life we're in now is a very short chapter in a very long book. We've had previous lives, we've come to this point by great good fortune, by maybe some devotion in our previous lives. We're now interested in this subject matter, some chanting Hare Krishna. So, and then there's a future. The future in this life, and there's a future after this life. So the whole question, the whole of an intelligent human being is that, how did I get to this point? But more importantly, how can I act for my ultimate benefit in the future life? And we soon find out, if we cultivate Krishna consciousness in the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that that also includes sharing what we know with others. Because that's a very important part of the sadhana. Krishna says in the end of the Gita, for one who shares this knowledge with others, there's no one more dear to me. So that's the whole point, to become dear to Krishna. Then he, from within and from without, he can make our path back to Godhead much easier. If we not only become Krishna conscious, but try to share Krishna consciousness. So if we see everyone equally, then we'll equally try to give them as much Krishna consciousness as they can take. Even these poor animals, I remember, I've been here so long, there used to be a cat. They gave the cat the name Narada Muni. I said, you can't do that, you know. But anyway, that's the name that it came to. And this cat had become addicted to kheer, you know. Every day we have this kheer, and we put out on a little leaf, you know, and a cat would come. He would come. He knew the time when breakfast was coming, you know. And he got so much association with devotees, you know. And the cat's gone now. This was years ago. But you don't ignore anyone, you know. Even some animals passing by, or a tree. I take this walk sometimes, and there's one road that I sometimes go up. And it's rare here in PB, this old growth, you know, a tree that's obviously been there, looks like it's 100 years old. You know, you can see they've trimmed here and trimmed there, because it's trying to grow, you know. But there's 4 or 5 of them. And it may be sentimental, whatever, you know. But I mean, Haridas Thakur was saying you should chant loudly for the benefit of all the living entities. So I greet these trees, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Sometimes I touch them a little bit, you know. I mean, why not? I'm not, you know, it's not hurting me. And they can also benefit. Prabhupada would say, you see a little bug grow on the table, you know, and Hari, sorry, what should I do with him? He said, chant Hare Krishna to the bug, you know. Give him a little prasadam. You know? So this is the vision of the Vaishnava. He sees living entities are spread everywhere. And we're the fortunate living entities who have a clue about what is really auspicious in this world. And if we take it up in our own lives and we share it, then Krishna from within will give us so much insight, and we'll be able to see him everywhere. Okay, the next verse actually is all about that. Any questions on this verse? Comments? Okay. Go ahead. Use the mic. Do we have 2 mics here?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hi, Ba.
Talking about the tree, there is a tree called people tree.
The people tree.
It's considered as Krishna resides in that tree. I mean, people have different philosophies, and it's Krishna died under that tree also, they say. Oh,
really? Okay, yeah. We won't get to that.
Yeah, so that tree, that leaf of that tree, they say it has so many qualities that scientists, they are still discovering new and new and new and new.
Really,
like, there are so many benefits out of that branch of leaf. So in India, people say Krishna resides in that particular tree.
Okay, but we never want to say Krishna dies, because Krishna never dies. We also don't die.
Yeah.
He maybe disappeared in past time.
Yeah, past time.
Interesting. This next verse, do you want to say something, Guru?
I had a question.
Yeah, okay.
Hare Krishna.
So
here the verse talks about a self-realized person.
Yeah.
So is it necessary to be self-realized to become God-realized, first and foremost? And is there a distinction between the two?
Well, in common parlance, the self-realized generally refers to someone who is understand the Atma.
Right.
You know, this is Atma. But there's a convention in books. I've been working on these books. When you cap the S, like you see this cap S self throughout here, this refers to the Supersoul, the super self, who resides alongside the soul in the heart. You know, so we want both kinds of self-realization. The self or the soul, the Atma, the individual Atma, is spoken of in detail at the beginning of the Gita, text 211 to 230. There's a whole lesson on the soul. But even there, you know, there's one will really understand, what is that? Tani Savani Sang Yuktasi Matpadaha. Krishna, this is the first time Krishna mentions one should be dedicated to him as the object of self-realization. So really to understand the self in its fullness means to understand our original form, our original nature as spiritual beings in the spiritual world. Even though we may be dwelling physically this world, we can understand that, and that's full self-realization. So really, ultimately, they're very closely aligned, and they depend on another. To become fully self-realized, one has to become God-realized, Krishna-realized. And then you understand not only Krishna, but your own self in relation to him, that eternal relationship. That this is also the definition of mukti in the Bhagavatam. Because mukti just doesn't mean you're free from the bonds of the material energy, and you're free from your bad karma, and you merge into Brahman, and you live there forever. That's not mukti or moksha. It's defined mukti hitpa anyata rupam swarupena vavasati. This is precisely the self-realization you're asking about. Mukti means to give up, literally hitpa anyata rupam, other forms that we've been inhabiting for time immemorial. Just like in this one body. This is the Krishna speaking 2:13, Dehi nosmin yata dehi. Just as the soul has been passing through childhood and youth and middle age, old age, like that. These are all different bodies. They change very slowly, you don't realize it, but over time, it's obvious. I'm in a different body now than I was when I was 14 years old. So that's other rupas. Those are external to the soul. But to give all of them up, you're no longer passing through. You're in your swarup, your original form. And that's ultimate self-realization, and it goes along with God-realization. So they go together.
So in that case, the soul determines whether or not to come back in a new body in the next life.
The soul what?
The soul determines once the individual soul, if it's fully realized, that determines whether or not to come back in the next life.
Well, that means that you don't come back in a material body. That
But does it have a choice?
This body,
does the soul have a choice then?
the soul, the realized soul is giving all the initiative over to Krishna. In other words, what does surrender mean? You know, we're serving. So serving means, real service means to try to please the one who served.
Right.
And when that person is Krishna, that's perfection of life. But now, in our conditioned state, even if we're practicing devotional service, there's a struggle. Because there's so many things that we still want to do, you know, separate. But we're trying to dovetail that and purify that desire. So full self-realization, God-realization, perfection in Krishna consciousness means that anyabhilashata shunyam. This is the definition given at the beginning, near the beginning of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by Rupa Goswami, who's our Rasacharya, who's the most foremost disciple of Lord Chaitanya. So right away he says, well, here's what we're striving for. Here's the perfection. Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karma jnanavatam anukulyena krishnanushilanam bhaktir uttama. This is the final pinnacle of bhakti. He's saying right at the beginning. So anya means other. Abhilashita means desire or serious longing. Shunyam, to be devoid of them. And he gives kind of the categories. Jnana, karma, adi. Desire for impersonal knowledge, or karma means the general thing that people desire, some material thing that they're going to enjoy. Anadi, adi anavartam, not covered or obscured by any other desire. In other words, free of that shunya. You see, then what? Okay, that's not what it is. What is it? Anukulyena krishnanushilanam, behavior activity that's motivated by a desire to please the Lord. Anukulena, anukulena bhakta shilam bhaktaruttama. Anukulena Krishnanu, the Krishna's service and his desire. This is called the supreme, and this is the supreme state of self-realization. It's where we all came from. It's getting back to our original state. This is a very important point. That this is all unnatural. To be fraught with old age, disease, and death, and all these anxieties, and climate change, and whatever, personal. And eventually you're living in a body that is not perfect, it's not eternal. And so that itself is a great anxiety. But if you know, I'm not the body, I'm going to graduate from this body, I'm going to leave this body, and now I'm learning more and more about my eternal function, which is basically a servant of Krishna, which we can begin. Then the fear, we've had several departures from this yatra of devotees. I've been there for some of them because they want me to come and chant. They like the way I chant. And I also worked in a hospital for several years before I even knew about Krishna consciousness, back in the early 70s. So I've seen the other side, how people die, and it's such a horrific experience. Most of the time it's so painful that they just drug them up, and you die like that, which is the worst way to go. But spiritually. But devotees, very peacefully, we just had this wonderful devotee, Rajendra Nandana Prabhu, who was a god brother of mine. He was about the movement. It's in the early 70s. And he was very advanced. He had spent many years, he had to support his family, he would have to do business for some years, but then he would spend months in Mayapur, and he would be going on parakram and cultivating, And he was, he was chanting Hare Krishna. He was chanting the name Krishna at the end, and he was meeting it with a great equanimity. We even had a lady, she was 35 or so, Yamunapati's daughter, who died also of cancer, not here, but in Alatra, Gainesville. And she had so many friends calling into her. Spiritual master was talking to her for hours on the phone. I called her and I chanted some of my poems about Krishna and Radha. And her father was right there, and he said it was just like peaceful as anything. And it was like when the plane came and she got on the plane and left. That after all is the bottom line. How are you going to leave this body? Because nobody dies. Najayate mriyate bhakadasha. Nobody dies. The question is, what is your next situation? Ideally, you won't have a material body at all. And that's self-realization, God-realization. That's all the realization you want. Yes, go ahead, Arjun.
So when we are in Krishna consciousness, right? What I learned in my life that our karmas are calculated by Yamduta when we die.
What?
The Yamdut.
The Yamadutas.
The Yamadut. They calculate you did good, you did bad. But I'm assuming, and it's my belief, that when you are in Krishna consciousness, you bypass that route also. Is that
the
correct?
Yamadutas won't come for you.
Okay.
For sure.
So you don't have to go through that process. You're just
that's
going
for those
straight.
very sinful. They're judging which hell they're going to go to.
Yeah.
That's the Yamadutas. And we're coming now in the Bhagavatam class. We're just starting the chapter that's all about that. Because the last chapter of the 5th canon is all about the hellish planets. And it's only a sample, this is, and you do this and you get this, you do this. And then for some reason, because I worked on that chapter back in 75 as an editor. And it never dawned on me, he said, well, what about if people are doing a whole bunch of these? If you cook lobsters, you're going to get boiled in oil. Okay, but you cook lobsters, you have illicit sex, so that what happens? You go to one hell after another? Who knows? The point is, it's just horrific. And nobody knows about that. People are believing less and less even about, that there is a God in this modern age, But it's all very real. So this chapter that we're reading, Ajamil, is all about that. Yamaraj will instruct his dutas in the end. Don't go near anyone who's chanting Hare Krishna. No, don't even go near. And then he has a summary verse of instructions. If you study Bhagavatam, there are various verses that begin with the word etavan. And in my years of study, each of those verses usually embodies a very important lesson. So he says, Etavad janmasapalyam. Etavad. No, etavana vilokesman pungsang dharmak paraksmitaha. Bhakti-yoga bhagavati tannama guhanaribi. So etavan evalokesmin, for the people who are living here in this material world, pungsang dharmak paraksmitaha. It is understood from the Shastra that the ultimate dharma is, guess what? Bhakti-yoga bhagavati. Is the devotional service rendered unto Supreme Personality. Tannama Grahanadibi, beginning with the chanting of His holy name. Tannama Grahana Adibi. This is the first thing. And that's exactly what this movement is all about. You don't know anything about anything? Fine. Just come here, help sing with us, chant Hare Krishna, here's the mantra, you can learn it in 1 minute, you know? And okay, let me try it. And if someone is that fortunate, then they're on their way, and Krishna from in the heart, guide you, take this book. Okay, I did feel something. Let me read about that. And before you know it, you're off and going. So that's exactly, and it's so auspicious, this chanting. We take it out, people, they don't know what it's the Hare Krishnas. And as soon as they say that, even if they just think it in their mind, that's auspicious for them, So, and then it culminates actually in this next text, which you're going to read, which we still have time to do. And this is one of the favorite verses of the devotee. One of the reasons it's a little poem. It's a little, you'll see, when we read the translation, it's practically rhymes. Yomam pashyati sarvatra, sarvam cha mai pashyati, tasyaham na pranashyami, sachame na pranashyati. Even the Sanskrit, it has a little to it, doesn't it? For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost to me. So it's a poem. Purport. A person in Krishna consciousness certainly sees Lord Krishna everywhere. And he sees everything in Krishna. Such a person may appear to see all separate manifestations of the material nature, but in each and every instance he is conscious of Krishna, knowing that everything is a manifestation of Krishna's energy. Nothing can exist without Krishna, and Krishna is the Lord of everything. This is the basic principle of Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is the development of love of Krishna, a position transcendental even to material liberation. At this stage of Krishna consciousness, beyond self-realization, the devotee becomes one with Krishna in the sense that Krishna becomes everything for the devotee, and the devotee becomes full in loving Krishna. An intimate relationship between the Lord and the devotee then exists. In that stage, the living entity can never be annihilated, nor is the personality of Godhead ever out of the sight of the devotee. To merge in Krishna is spiritual annihilation. A devotee takes no such risk. It is stated in the Brahma Samhita 538. Premanjanatudita bhakti vilochanena santa sadaiva didiyeshu vilokayanti yang shyama sundadamachinda gunaswarupam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship the primeval Lord, Govinda, who is always seen by the devotee whose eyes are anointed with the pulp of love. He is seen in his eternal form of Shyama Sundar, situated within the heart of the devotee. At this stage, Lord Krishna never disappears from the sight of the devotee, nor does the devotee ever lose sight of the Lord. In the case of a yogi who sees the Lord as Paramatma within his heart, the same applies. Such a yogi turns into a pure devotee and cannot bear to live for a moment without seeing the Lord within himself. Now, I can't resist. There's an editorial issue here in this purport, and I didn't see it for 50 years, for all this time. And nobody saw it. Jai Vaidamaj didn't see it. No one else saw it. But one devotee named Sankarshan, who's an old godbrother of mine, he's also a guru in this movement, he pointed out that the first sentence of that last paragraph, Vedikev, at this, Lord Krishna never disappears from the sight of the devotee, nor does the devotee ever lose sight of the Lord. That's saying the same thing. That's like saying, Lord Krishna, the devotee never loses sight. You see that? Lord never disappears from the sight of the devotee. That's the same thing as the devotee does not lose sight of the Lord. You understand?
Yeah, the same thing.
It's the same thing. So that's going to be fixed. And we did some research. Baladev Vijayabhushan is the main commentator who probably relies on for this his purports. And he's saying that this very phrase in the verse, Tasyaham na pranashami nachamena pranashyati, I am never lost nor is ever lost to me, that means that that Krishna says, the devotee never loses sight of me, nor do I never lose sight of the devotee.
Yeah, it's actually good because it's saying Krishna never leaves the devotee.
He's always watching over us. Yeah,
He never thinks of anything else other than Lord Krishna.
yes, but also the idea of seeing. The seeing. In other words, ultimately, this Ashtanga yoga, he sees the Supersoul. The Supersoul manifests here and sometimes in front of him. We have like the case of Dhruva Maharaj. He was meditating on the Lord in the heart, Vishnu, for only 6 months, a short time. Very, very sincerely. Just a young boy, but he was motivated. And eventually he couldn't see the Lord in his heart. He opens his eyes and there's Vishnu in front of him. He's seeing directly, and he offered so many wonderful prayers. Most famously, and this is an important point, because Dhruva, see, the bhakti yoga is what we're doing is an evolution of our desire, purification of desire, because desire in the material sense is all mediated through the material mind and the material senses, and it's all a question: what will please me? What do I have to avoid? Me, I and my. But the bhakta, he's focused always on Krishna, and the love develops because of service, and so he's focused more and more on what will please Krishna. You're getting pleasure from pleasing the beloved, just like a mother gets pleasure if the child, gives a little smile with the toothless mouth. I mean, that makes the day of that mother. Oh, this child is comfortable, he's healthy, he's happy, he's growing nicely. Boom, all focused on the beloved. You don't expect, what's the deal? I'll give you so much, formula or milk, and what do I get out of it? It's nothing like that. That's not the calculation of love. But so Dhruva at the end, he says, "Sthana abhilashi tapasistitoham tvam paptavan devamanindra guyam." He says, Sthana abhilashi, I was situated Sthana abhilashi, I was longing for a position, a kingdom greater than my father's, and greater than my grandfather's, Brahma, great-grandfather. In other words, he's a little boy. He says, I want a kingdom, I'm so upset because my stepmother wouldn't let me get on my father's lap. I'll show her. And he goes to his mother. His mother says, I can't help you, God can help you. Where is God? I've heard the great sages, they find him in the forest. So off he goes to the forest. In one sense, it's a very, childish thing he's doing. But he's serious. He's a Kshatriya. So who comes along? Narada Muni. He always steps in at the ideal time. So first he tests him. He says, you're too young, I'll teach you later, And so Dhruva says, thank you very much, great sage, but if you want to help me, I'm going on my own, So Narada Muni says, okay. So he gives him a very rudimentary process. It's centered on chanting the holy name. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate. He's chanting. That's part of it. But he's also doing rudimentary deity worship. There's a little deity, by the river. And he's practicing yoga. He's practicing serious yoga, breathing, pranayama. So what happens is, you may know the story, that he becomes so powerful with the breathing that he's entrained the universal breathing. And the demigods are having trouble. They've got COVID-19. They can't breathe properly, So what do? They go to Vishnu and say, please do something, go down. He's your devotee. So he goes down on Garuda. So there's Dhruva, he's meditating, and he sees the Lord, and he falls down and he's in ecstasy, he's experiencing all these symptoms. So he doesn't say, oh, okay, now can I have my kingdom? No, he says just the opposite. He says, Sthana abhilashi tapasisito. I was situated in severe austerity, desiring this position, sthana, abhilashi, longing for it, greater than. Tvam praptavan, but now I've attained you. Tvam praptavan deva munindra guyam, who are hidden away from even the greatest munis and yogis, So I realize how rare this is, the darshan of Vishnu, So, kacham vichinvan. So I realize now that kingdom I wanted was no more valuable than a piece of broken glass compared to the divine jewel of your darshan. Abhidivya ratnam, and then, so he says, Swamin Kritosmi, Swamin Kritosi, Navarang Niyache. These verses I have to review. So it's, my dear Lord, I don't desire anything Swamin Kritasam beyond you. I've given up this desire. So he's cleansed. His desire had evolved. He doesn't want the kingdom. But because he did want it, now when he goes back, his father is already retired. I forget if he died, in separation, because he was responsible. But anyway, he gets the kingdom. He reigns for 35,000 years, And then he goes to Dhruva-loka, which is a Vaikuntha planet within this world, within this universe, special. So that he's a perfect example of someone who starts out with the material desire, but because his sadhana is all directed toward Krishna or Vishnu, it's all, then that evolves into a pure desire. And factually speaking, that's what most devotees go through. You come to Krishna consciousness and you desire, you don't know what you want. You may want liberation, something spiritual, who knows. But by practicing the process associated with devotees, chanting the holy name, it evolves so that eventually you don't want anything for yourself. You just want Krishna's happiness, serve the devotees, somehow help the people, and you realize that that is the actual path to the highest happiness. To forget all about your bliss. You want to really be blissful in Krishna consciousness? Forget all about your bliss. And just think of the service and think of the holy name and chant nicely, and then you become perfectly happy. So, and this is seeing Krishna everywhere. So what we're going to do with this is, at this stage, Lord Krishna never loses sight of the devotee, nor does the devotee ever lose sight of the Lord. That would solve it. The only problem is that reverses the order in the verse. I am never lost means that the devotee never loses sight of me. So we may do it at this stage. The devotee never loses sight of Lord Krishna, nor does the Lord ever lose sight of the devotee. Anyway, we're going to do something like that. But, huh?
I actually like this phrase.
What, the way it is now?
Yeah, the way it is now, because
but
because it gives me more as a devotee, I feel like more protection. That Krishna never loses me, nor I lose not Krishna. It's like a relationship. This phrase tells you the relationship between the devotee.
Yeah, but the thing is, but in the verse it doesn't say anything about seeing. But we get the commentary of Baladev Vijayabhusan, which ultimately Prabhupada gives at the end there, that not being lost means Krishna's always seeing you and watching over you. And on your side, you're always seeing Krishna, and that your every act, every thought is in how can I relate to Krishna in a loving relationship. So that's what it means. Yeah. So that's good. Okay, so we'll pick up there tomorrow, text 31. Yeah. And thank you all who attended locally and remotely. Hare Krishna.